All right, check, radio check. I want to thank everybody for taking time out of their busy schedules. Good to see some of you on the call, so thanks for joining us. Summer's here, and I just flew in from Texas last night, and I am out next week, so I'll go ahead and throw that out that there will be no chat with Chris next Thursday. Before we get started, would somebody mind putting into chat that A, you can hear me, and B, that you can see my screen, just to make sure I don't start talking and go on uh, a rant there. Good, loud and clear. Thank you, thank you, thank you. All right. So without further ado, it's been a while since I've touched on this, but I had a college planning client that I sat down with that is now, we were able to get all three of their triplets through college without paying retail and going broke. So what's interesting is this was, as I've gone through my financial planning career and as I help families, it's interesting how unintended aspects of my business have actually allowed me to help not only the students that I got through college, right? Because now they're out, they're graduated, they're moving on with their lives, they're getting married, having children, getting jobs, and need financial guidance. And it's really been a blessing to me and my family, but also the parents who have quite often my clients become my friends, right? So with that said, they are close to retirement. And it was really pleasant just being able to share with them that basically they're doing really well and they're in a position. Think about it: three students going to three different colleges, and they're still intact financially. So, but when we started to sit down, and this is where I think that this conversation is going to end up being in two pieces. So we're going to talk today about just investments on a high level, and then some things to start to take into consideration. And then a question was brought up, which was a dividend basket in comparison to some of the other recommendations. So we're going to go through some of the things I've learned throughout my career and hopefully share those with you today, and they'll make sense. So there are different types of it, what we call investment cows. And, you see that I think a picture's worth 1,000 words, but the next slide will give us the verbiage behind it. But, you see the dotted line. So we know that, in the beef industry, there are prime areas of meat and beef, and we're willing to pay for that, right? So think of that as one type of stock. Those are growth stocks. Those are where you're really trying to create the best in breed as far as stock, but ultimately you send it to the slaughterhouse and you rinse and repeat. So think of those as growth stocks. Value, and then again, Caitlin did a great job here picking a pretty picture here, because this is Daisy. Daisy's a breeder. Daisy's we don't want to send to the slaughterhouse. We really want to be able to actually create and split. So think of an AOL back in the day, or NVIDIA most recently, right? We want to some of those stock splits and have it just go to the moon and grow and create dividends and great. All of those things are the value stocks. The last one is the income cow. We used to call this slide the milk cow was the conversation. But I like investment cows because, as we start to look at it, not one strategy should always be taken. So again, this is the verbiage pretty much behind what I just showed you. But here's what I wanted to. I haven't shown this slide in a long time because I find that a lot of people, I have some letters after my name, and I say that not braggadociously, but I've spent my career over 30 years. I studied this stuff. And this was like sort of this unspoken insider secret that I learned as I started to get my designations. And I was like, wow, why doesn't everybody talk about it? And really, there are what we call two economic forces at work, right? You can either be on the left side of the page, and this is where predominantly most of America gravitates towards. They're in the left side. They're like, hey, I want to be in the market. I need an investment strategy. I need stocks and bonds. And I am an investment advisor. I am a fiduciary. I will help you to design plans that are right for you and to understand it. But very few folks talk about the actuarial science, the right side of the page. And there are two areas that should be part of most folks planning and strategies to reduce the risk, right? So those are annuities and life insurance, because that area, the actuarial science, comes from the actuaries at these financial institutions, these insurance companies. So it's not either or, it's a blend of. But what you have to understand is that when we're investing and we're trying to put money in, if you follow what every other marketing campaign I've ever seen in my career talks about, get to retirement, get to 65 with the largest sum possible. Okay, well, there's risk associated with that advice. So, not only the longevity risk, right? That's if we live to 100 and the likelihood of events happening, but also the sequence of return risk. And we're going to talk about that. That's going to be part two of what we talk about when I come back, because I can't cover everything in a 15 or 30-minute call. So my goal is here today is just to help you to see the risk on the left side. We're not going to talk too much about the right side, a little bit of both. So this is a old slide that I dug up, and I find it, I used it with my client the other day because it was her that came back and said, hey, what about, they had bought an old Allianz annuity from me, and they were out of surrender, and they're looking at this and they're going, hey, is this still the right item for us? And we went back and I did a deep dive on what the current market is allowing us to look at. So when we did a comparison, and I just try and be fair, right? Be completely neutral. The dividend paying stocks, and what I did is, Brookstone, who I'm an IAR with, has a dividend portfolio and the yield's been about 5%. Right? But what you have to understand, if we were 100% in stocks, even in dividend paying stocks, which are typically better caliber type stocks, you see here that 5%, when you apply the 4% or 5% rule to a portfolio using Monte Carlo simulations that you have over a period of time, unfortunately, market conditions will cause those portfolios to risk failure. And so that's what the risk is as we're looking at this. So even 3 or 4%, the way I explain this when I'm doing public live presentations, let's just say it's 4%, which was the 4% rule. You have a 70% chance of success in your portfolio of not running out of money in retirement. Well, that's equating to me hopping on a plane in Newark and flying to San Diego, and the pilot coming over the loudspeaker and going, hey, we have a 30% chance of not making it. Would you get on that plane? So again, I believe in income strategies. I like dividend stocks. I use them with my clients along the way. As a fiduciary, I actually make more money long term if somebody makes and elects that strategy. The question that we have to understand is, what is the risk compared to, and that's when actuarial science can come into play. So this is just a slide that just says, hey, listen, the 2.29 or the 2.84 in a moderate portfolio, it's just saying that, look, the withdrawal, that rule of thumb that you see all over, the 4% rule, is really actually 2.29 or 2.84. So, and to put that in mathematical terms or numerical terms, if I had $1 million and I needed 40 grand to fill the income gap, but realistically, the Monte Carlo simulator is showing that that will not give me 100% certainty. Only a drawdown of 2.29 or 22,000 or 2.84 or 28,000 is the safe rate of withdrawal rate that really should be utilized. And this is why most people, looks good immediately, but long term, it cannot stand the variables of the unknown. So that's what Monte Carlo typically measures. So, to put this in easy to understand language, right? What I'm basically trying to say is that if you elect to not use actuarial science, let's say you listen to that commercial, I hate annuities and you should too. Okay. I'm not, if somebody walks in my office and goes, don't bring up annuities, fine, I shut up. However, understand the alternative. And if we use the 4% rule, right, even though we know it's flawed, 100% of your money must be in the market all the time in order to achieve that, good and bad. And that's where that milk cow creating a debit, an income or a milk withdrawal strategy could be flawed. Now, the way I summarize is I say, look, let's say our cow can give us a gallon of milk, but it loses 20% of its weight, or $1 million goes to 800. It's not that the 4% won't still be available, right? So a lot of these stocks that are in dividend paying stock strategies will give us a yield. So we're likely in the beginning okay to get a gallon of milk still, even though we only have a value of 800,000, right? Because we didn't slaughter the cow. However, if that sustains at that period of time, quite often a lot of those corporations will have no choice but to cut dividends. And at that point in time, that's when we see the consumption of the actual cow, or the having to sell off the stock to be able to satisfy the income need. And that's why when Wade Pfau, who was my professor, PhD at the American College, when he created all these conversations, he did in-depth analysis on this, basically saying, hey, look, it can work short term, but long term, it's under pressure, especially 100% equities like we're seeing here. Versus if we look at an income annuity, right? This is actuarial science. We only need 50% of the asset to get the same withdrawal rate. So you'll see that next week, and that's the conversation that I had. So maybe it's 60%, but the point is I can actually get guaranteed income from a insurance company that I would necessarily have to take twice as much risk that I could otherwise. And that in and of itself, right now you'll see next week when I do sequence of return, I'll show you a withdrawal rate of 6.17%. A equity portfolio cannot compete. And then when you take sequence of return, which is I'm not going to show favorites in the numbers. We're just going to take random results, look at that real time, and say, hey, did that portfolio actually cannibalize itself, or collapse, or explode, or run out of money? Whatever vernacular you want to use, the end of the day is, when we get to retirement, you have to remember this basic rule of thumb. It's about income. We have to secure as much guaranteed income with as little risk as we possibly can. That's a good balanced portfolio as we go forward. So, as you're approaching age, 62, 65, 67, 70, it is my pleasure to help people through this journey. But if we don't understand all the tools that are available to us, sometimes we end up making mistakes along the way. So, to understand why and how annuities work, I haven't used this slide in a while, but I think it really does talk about the underlying actuarial science component. And that's what are longevity credits. And most people have a hard time getting their head around it. So the way I explain it is saying, listen, let's say that there are 5 women. 5 women want to go on vacation. They're 90 years old, and every year they want to go away. So they decide, at 90 to put $100 into a box. So you got $500. And when they come back next year, unfortunately, one of those ladies has died. So they meet to go on vacation again, but now there's only 4 ladies and they split the 500. So they now each have $125. That's longevity credit. It's the exact opposite of insurance, right? Insurance is pulling all the people together in case to talk about premature death. And what ends up happening is that if somebody dies earlier, then the actuaries have figured out everybody else has funded that death benefit. Well, it's the exact opposite, or longevity credits. Whereas people are living longer, it's the people that have not, that have left us, that have helped to subsidize the people that are remaining. So, how much was it? But, the key question, that's 100 or 25% rate of return on this lady's money, or these ladies' money. And what was the interest rate earned? That was 25% with no market risk. Well, when they let it ride, they decide to do it again, and now they come back, and in the next year, the another lady dies, and now that $500 gets divided three ways. So now it's $167, or 67% with zero market risk. This is longevity credits, and this is why it needs to be part of most people's overall planning and portfolios. So I took out the slide. Keep in mind we got Rutgers coming up. I got April 20, or I'm sorry, July 27th and August 3rd. I have Rutgers. We're going to be sending out registrations. We just signed on the dotted line for mailings going out, but everybody that's on this call will get first come, first serve. If you want to attend that, send me an email. Happy to have you. And without further ado, this is our ending and our disclosures. Thank you all. I hope everybody's well. Remember, next week, no call. The following week, we'll continue this conversation on sequence of return risk.